What's going on, everybody? Kalipus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G 2023 and the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G. Now, as always, if you end up wanting to learn more about either phone individually, be sure to check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the Moto G Stylus 5G 2023, we're getting a 6.6-inch 120Hz IPS LCD display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 399, and a 20:9 aspect ratio. With the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G, we're getting a 6.6-inch 120Hz Super AMOLED display with the 1080p resolution, a PPI of 390, and a 19.5:9 aspect ratio. So in general, in most ways, these displays are pretty much the same, but the A34 5G does have a bit of an advantage with the Super AMOLED versus an IPS LCD, because with the Super AMOLED, or really any kind of AMOLED or OLED or anything like that, the display tends to be a bit brighter, the colors are a bit more rich and vivid, and the viewing angles are a lot better, so if you're outside in the sun, for example, the A34 5G will be quite a bit easier to see. But at the end of the day, if you're in a normal kind of indoor environment, while the Super AMOLED is going to be a bit nicer and honestly a bit more premium looking. In general, if you're watching videos, playing games, using social media, or really anything for that matter, either phone here will give you a great experience. So while if you do technically want the better display between the two, the A34 5G will have an advantage, the Moto G Stylus 5G will still be a great choice too. For storage, with the Moto G Stylus 5G, keep in mind this phone in my hand is factory unlocked, and if you get it through a carrier, the storage could be different, but this one in my hand does have 256GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and with the A34 5G, we are getting 128GB with microSD card expansion as well. But I believe there is another version that also has 256, so honestly, storage-wise, it could go either way. In this specific comparison, the Moto G Stylus 5G does have an advantage, but depending on which version you end up getting, it could really go either way. But regardless, for the average user, even with 128GB, for most people that will still be plenty of storage, so you're really not going to go wrong with either phone here. For security features, both phones have Face Unlock, and they both have fingerprint scanners. With the Moto G Stylus 5G, it's right here on the power key, and with the A34 5G, it's in the display. But starting with the Motorola, let's give them a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. And now for the Samsung. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see, both fingerprint scanners were real fast and responsive, no issues at all. And again, both phones have Face Unlock too, so if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now taking a look at the camera setups here, with the Motorola, up front, we got a 16-megapixel selfie camera, then on the back, we got a dual camera setup, with a 50-megapixel main camera and an 8-megapixel ultra-wide camera that also doubles as a macro camera. And for video, this phone can record 4K videos in the rear camera and 1080p in the front. With the Samsung, up front, we get a 13-megapixel selfie camera, then on the back, we get a triple camera setup with a 48-megapixel main camera, an 8-megapixel ultra-wide camera, and a 5-megapixel macro camera. And then for video, this phone can record 4K videos in both the rear and front cameras, so definitely great to see there. Overall, when it comes to features, pretty much the only real difference here is the video recording. Again, with the Motorola, despite being able to record 4K videos in the rear camera, for whatever reason, it can only record 1080p videos in the front, whereas again with the A34 5G, it can record 4K in the front and the rear. So honestly, I feel like for most people, it probably won't make much of a difference. And when it comes to everything else, they both have ultra-wide cameras, macro cameras, a decent night mode, stuff like that. So in general, you're not going to go wrong with either camera here. To give you an idea of what these cameras can do, first, here's some pictures taken with the Moto G Stylus 5G. In general, for a mid-range phone, it's pretty much as good as you can expect. And for most people, I definitely think the photo quality is plenty good enough for pretty much anything you might be doing. For stuff like Instagram, for example, where you want things to be presentable, it will get the job done just fine. And yeah, sure, if you spend $1,000 on a flagship phone, the photo quality will be better, but keep in mind, pretty much every social media platform is gonna compress the images anyway. So even if you have like an insanely good picture taken of the moon from a Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, it will look better, but it's not going to look that much better in comparison, just because on something like Instagram, the images probably won't look as good as their original quality anyway. So the point is, Sure, if you're really into mobile photography and you have like a mobile photography page or something like that, then yeah, you might be able to justify spending a bit more and getting something really high end. But for average casual use, for pictures of normal things and people and stuff like that, the Moto G Stylus 5G will be plenty good enough. And then here's some pictures taken with the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G. And in general, I'll let you decide for yourself which one is better between the two. But overall, it's pretty much the same kind of thing. Yeah, it's obviously not going to be nearly as good as a phone that's double or triple the price, but at the same time, for things most people are typically using smartphone cameras for, it will get the job done. So if you are more of a casual, regular user, but you still want a phone that has a nice camera, then just like with the Moto G Stylus 5G, you're not going to go wrong with the A34 5G either. Now for the RAM and processor, with the Moto G Stylus 5G, we're getting 6GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 6 Gen 1 processor. With the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G, we're getting 6GB of RAM here as well, with the MediaTek Dimensity 1080 processor. Now when it comes to performance between the two, first of all, I don't really think there's a significant difference. And second of all, for mid-range phones, I do think the performance here is pretty good. So while if you're coming from maybe like an older flagship phone for example, these phones might feel like a bit of a downgrade because after all, they're definitely not nearly as fast as your average flagship phone. For mid-range phones, I do think the performance we're getting from both devices is pretty good. So for normal activities like web browsing, social media, watching videos whether on YouTube or another streaming platform, and even playing some games and stuff like that, for that kind of use, either phone here will be perfectly fine. And again, there's not really a significant difference between the two. Now I ran a benchmark test on both phones using Geekbench 6, and here are the results I got. So as you can see, it's not really an insane difference. Yeah, technically the Motorola scored a bit better, but honestly, when you're actually using the phones, it's not going to be as noticeable. And compared to your average mid-range phone, both phones do perform really well. So in general, if you are looking for an affordable 5G phone that still has decently good performance, either phone here will be a great choice. Now for the batteries, there's really not a significant difference here either. Both phones have 5,000 mAh batteries, with the Moto G Stylus 5G supporting 20W fast charging, and the A34 5G supporting 25. And keep in mind, to actually take full advantage of fast charging like this, you will need a 20W or 25W fast charger, which neither phone comes with. The Motorola at least comes with a wall adapter, but I believe it's only 10 watts. Whereas with the A34, you're not getting any wall adapter at all. So to actually use the fast charging, you will have to get a fast charger. But aside from this, the battery life is great. With 5,000 mAh batteries, these phones are gonna last quite a while. So if you're maybe not around to charge a whole lot, but you still need to use your phone all day, you won't go wrong with either phone. And then of course, down the road as the batteries degrade, which obviously all batteries do, with these phones, you're not gonna notice it very quickly. So if you like to keep one phone for a longer time without having to replace it, you're not gonna go wrong with either phone here. For the software, both phones have Android 13, but keep in mind, without a doubt, compared to Motorola, Samsung has much better software support. With the A34 5G, you can expect to get Android 14, 15, 16, and 17, whereas with the Motorola, you might get Android 14, but I still wouldn't really count on it, considering the 2022 version of this phone is still on Android 12. So yeah, at least this phone does have Android 13, I will give it that, but if you really want to keep your phone for multiple years and still get updates, the Samsung will have an advantage. And then for other features, both phones do have NFC, so if you like to use tap and pay, keep in mind, you can use that feature with either phone here. But unfortunately with the A34 5G, we're not getting a headphone jack, whereas luckily the Moto G Stylus 5G still has one. I don't really know why Samsung is getting rid of headphone jacks in most of their kind of mid-range phones. Honestly, a little disappointing, but it is what it is, so definitely keep this in mind. And then of course, as the name implies, the Moto G Stylus 5G does obviously have a stylus, whereas with Samsung, pretty much the only phone they have that has a stylus is literally $1,000 more than this phone, so definitely if you want a mid-range phone with this feature, you will want to go with the Motorola. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? Now honestly, this is a pretty close one, because in a lot of ways, there's really not a huge difference between these two. In fact, each phone does have a slight advantage over the other. For example, with the Moto G Stylus 5G, the performance is arguably a little bit better. It does again have a stylus. It also has more of a stock Android kind of feel, which don't get me wrong, One UI is definitely great. And obviously some people might like it a little bit better, but if you do want more of a simple kind of software, the Motorola is definitely a great choice. And again, with 256GB of internal storage. Although again, I think the A34 5G does have a variant with that too. I feel like it's more common with the Motorola because again, if you get this phone unlocked, you will definitely get this storage. Whereas with the A34 5G, first of all, this phone is not officially launched in the US. And despite being reasonably affordable anyway, not every unlocked version has that much storage. So if that's more important to you, definitely keep this in mind. But on the other hand, the A34 5G does have some advantages too. Again, the software support is a lot better. It also has a tiny bit better fast charging, although a 5-watt difference is hardly a reason to get one phone over the other, but it can record 4K videos in the selfie camera, which again, this is probably not that big a deal for most people, but maybe you're doing like vlogs or something like that and you want to get that higher resolution. In that kind of situation, obviously you can probably get like a selfie stick or something with the Motorola, but with the Samsung I feel like being able to record 4K videos in the selfie camera can definitely have some advantages, and it also has a Super AMOLED display making the image quality a bit better. So overall I feel like these phones are really evenly matched. Obviously if you want a stylus, the Moto G Stylus 5G will be the way to go, and if you want better software support, you're probably going to want the A34 5G. But in general, if you're looking for an affordable 5G phone that has a great display, plenty of storage, a really nice camera, good performance, a large battery, and features like NFC, then you're really not going to go wrong with either phone here. But this concludes my comparison between the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G 2023 and the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G. Again, if you want to learn more about either phone individually, definitely check out the description where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipus Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.